Hello and welcome to That's Entertaining, the show that's all about events, entertainment, and technology. I'm your host, Arthur Kay. It is so good to be here again with you. And of course, if you are here watching live, we always encourage you to, of course, like the video if you like the content, but also participate in the conversation by, contributing in the chat. And we welcome all views and opposing views. So if you have questions for my guests later, also feel free to pop those in the chat. I'm excited about the show today. We've got some really big news in terms of music and AI, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. And we're going to take a deep dive into the world of experiential marketing with Nicole Jimenez, my guest today. So I'm excited to talk to her about that because experiential marketing is a huge field and has exploded over the last decade, and I'm looking forward to kind of talking to her about that and learning more about what she's been up to and what the world of experiential marketing is up to as well. So let's get into the show with our special report. So, as you may have heard, AI is all over the place. It's making waves in pretty much every industry, including music in a big way. Perhaps you heard recently there was a Drake and Weeknd song that came out that went totally viral. And, well, it wasn't in fact Drake or The Weeknd. It was somebody who used AI to replicate their voices, which really brings up a whole world of potential issues, of course, when we're talking about using someone's voice likeness. I mean, I don't know if there's sort of legalities around this, but if there isn't, I'm sure there are discussions about that coming up. But this next bit that I'm going to share with you is really legit because it's an actual band that has recreated their own music. And what I'm talking about is the Beatles. Yes, that's right. You heard it. The Beatles just came out with a brand new song. It's called Now and Then. And here's the story behind the song. So in 1974, I believe it was, John Lennon, this is post Beatles breakup, John Lennon recorded some demos in his apartment, just playing the piano and singing. And after his untimely death, about a decade later, Yoko Ono sent these tapes to Paul McCartney. And in 1984, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, and Paul McCartney came together in the studio to try to finish the song with John Lennon's vocals and piano. And they went in and they recorded their tracks and they really tried to make it work, but it just didn't work because John Lennon's vocals were drowned out essentially by the piano. It was all on one track, and the technology just did not exist. Fast forward to 2023, and the technology does now exist. And this is exactly what the Beatles have done, is they've taken that one track with John's vocals and the piano, and they stripped out all the piano sound from it, leaving just his vocals. And they were able to go back into the studio using some of George Harrison's takes, his guitar takes from the 1984 session, use those, and Paul and Ringo came together and did their parts on top of it, and that is now what we have for Now and Then. And I don't want to get a copyright strike, so I'm not playing the audio of this, but I did want to share a little bit of the video. It's an interesting video. I mean, there's some parts of it that I love, and there's some parts that are kind of a little creepy, where they've superimposed old versions of Paul and George, well, all of them really, with their own images. This is the 1984 session that you can see here, which is part of the video. But some of the choices of the older versions themselves, I thought were a little kind of, I don't know, a little weird, as you may see. Maybe I'll fast forward through some of this stuff to, let's see, this is still the 84 session. So here you can see this is Ringo and Paul in the studio. And here we go. So yeah, that John Lennon there looks a little kooky, but perhaps this was the only footage, this Sgt. Pepper's footage. I don't know if some of this footage was shot on a green screen, but I wouldn't be surprised if they also used some AI in the keying out of those older versions of themselves. And that is Glenn Martin, who's George Martin's son, who was their producer, the Beatles producer, who recorded all the strings. Now this shot, I got to pause it on this shot. Oh, let me go back for a sec. This shot is so weird to me. Where is it? Because it's like George in his, like, I don't know, practice room or something, and you can like see like a phone, like, where it is. Oh, there it is. You see the phone from like 1982 there, and his like CD player. That's just I don't know. That's an interesting, an interesting choice of shot there. I don't know, but so yeah, this is really neat, and it really begs the question: who's going to be next to do this? Like, you know, imagine a Freddie Mercury recording that has been unreleased, or some other artists, you know. I'm trying to think who else would be an interesting choice, but of, you know, singers gone by or artists gone by who could re-release something. And I don't know if that's something that the artists themselves would even really want. Certainly something that audiences would want. And, you know, I think if you get a chance, go listen to the song. I do think it's a beautiful song. It is extremely Beatles-esque, if you will. I would say to me anyways, the only thing that really makes it not that Beatles-esque is the fact that just the recording methods they probably used, all digital, probably no tape recording here, and probably the amount and type of compression that they use. But otherwise, I think it's really interesting. I think, you know, if you're a Beatles fan or you're not a Beatles fan, you should check it out either way. Because so now we're going to get into a little bit about experiential marketing. And I'm very happy to have my guest, Nicole Jimenez, who is, well, she's a passionate and energetic experiential marketing professional with over 23 years of extensive experience in events, entertainment, corporate marketing, and brand partnerships. She is currently the Director of Experiential Marketing at World Vision Canada, as well as founder and president of Nichole Enterprises. Nicole is a creative visionary, transparent leader, and passionate advocate for professional women of color. And it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce you to Nicole Jimenez. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's always weird to sit through someone reading or speaking your bio. It's weird. But
Well,
thank you. Very kind
it's show
words.
business.
Yeah. It's very kind. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. We first crossed paths quite a few years ago, pre-pandemic, when you were other positions. Were you involved in the Peter Gabriel one?
I think it might have been later than that.
Okay.
It was definitely a Request Live event.
Yeah.
I believe it was Brian Adams at the Open Text conference, maybe 2018.
Right. Yeah.
Or something along those lines. Yeah.
Awesome events. Really, really crazy. They had our band You Request Live opening for Peter Gabriel.
Amazing.
It was really cool. And we reconnected during the pandemic, and you've also moved on and doing some other things. So I'm curious to know, because, you know, I'll be frank with you, like, I don't really know that much about experiential marketing, and it's something that I'm hearing about more and more and more and more.
Yeah. So, sorry, just adjusting here.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. We're live. You know, this is how
I can see you better.
How did you get into experiential marketing? I mean, it's not something like in events. Like a lot of people I speak to, it's not they didn't go to school for events. They just kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
What's your
Absolutely.
story? Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely same story. I definitely didn't go to school for events. I did fall into it. Initially, I knew I wanted a career in philanthropy, which, as you know, is a huge part of my background working with nonprofits. And then, yeah, definitely fell into, I think through fundraising and community, work, fell into events. So that is definitely my background. I actually started, planning birthday parties, community events, things like that. Worked at hockey arenas, planning like community stuff, things like that. And then sort of fell into more fundraising focused events. And I think that's really where my career launched. And then I actually had a few years where I worked as an event producer. So doing a lot of shows, concerts, things like that. And that's where I really felt like that was the transition more into an experiential aspect of, marketing and events. And so, yeah, that's kind of it. Well, I think that we all have the same story in terms of how we ended up here, but it's very, very similar to yours.
Well, I don't know. I feel like nowadays event planning and experiential marketing is actually something that people want to go into.
Yes, I
Whereas
would agree. I
when
think,
probably when you and I were starting up, it was not something that was as prevalent. And
yes.
but now it is, and people are actually wanting to go into that field. Is that something you can even study, or are there courses now that teach experiential marketing? Are there university degrees, or is it more just fall under like marketing?
Yeah, I don't know that there's specific XM, don't quote me on this, programs, at least that I've heard of. I definitely, as we all know, there's definitely now, when I started, there wasn't, but there is definitely now, event management focused, education that you can get. I don't know that's the same for XM. I think where it's really evolved is that when you looked at the benefits of connecting with people in real life through events, I think what has happened is that has expanded in terms of like what are the other channels and avenues we can do to connect one on one with people in real life. And I think that's where it's sort of evolved into this, hodgepodge of events and activations and all the things that where people gather basically, and that's how I like to define it. But I don't know that there's a direct education or very specific programs for that, but definitely has a lot of interest, I would say, even over the last 5 years or so. I don't know if you've noticed that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's something that was not really on my radar. Like, 10 years ago, I think experiential marketing
Yeah.
meant like someone dressed in like a peanut costume handing out samples on the corner of the street, right?
Yeah, I actually don't even know that it had that term. I don't know if it
No,
was
probably
called
not.
something.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
thing, but I don't know if it was actually called something. So I'm glad we've given it a name. And I even think even now,
It even has an
like I said,
acronym,
maybe
XM,
yes, XM.
right?
I'm going to say that a lot just because it's much easier to say. But I think even now it's further evolving. I think what we do within XM now, especially with the digital tools and things that we have now, which we didn't have, let's say, even 5 years ago. It's definitely, I feel there's a shift in the wind, and it's definitely evolving again. So will we call it XM in the next 5 years? I'm not sure, but it's definitely the buzz term right now.
So I want to sort of define for the audience too, what exactly is an experiential, what is
Yeah.
an experiential marketing event? There's experiential marketing activations. How do
Yeah.
you define what it actually is?
Yeah, I think it's actually more of the umbrella that kind of covers those channels that you talked about. So I think experiential, like I said, is more about the ways that we connect with people in real life, in person, human interaction. And I think under the umbrella of experiential marketing, that's where you would find very specific, types of channels such or tactics even such as events, like we mentioned, brand activations. Even in the work that I do right now with World Vision, we have our, brand partnerships and even influencer partnerships under the umbrella of XM, because at the end of the day, we're connecting on mass, in a mass format with a lot of people. We call it our one to many channels as opposed to our one to one channels, which is more direct or digital marketing. So I think experiential marketing is really just sort of the covering of the in real life ways that we connect with audiences or customers. And then under that umbrella, of course, there's the various channels that we use to activate some of those strategies. That's how I
Eh,
define it anyway.
Well, okay, so I'm curious because you say that,
Yeah.
the one to one experience connecting in person with people. So how the heck do you do that when there's a global pandemic? How that must have
Yeah.
like thrown a real wrench in the experiential marketing field. Like, so how, what do you do?
Yeah, not much. I can tell you that. Yeah,
Is there a way to
definitely.
do it digitally? Like, I'd love to know, like,
Yeah,
what was the thinking, during the pandemic on with the events and things that
yeah.
you're working on?
Yeah, it was definitely a hard time. And in fact, I would say we're now on the cusp of recovery in terms of like getting back out there, like we say, and being able to connect in a mass audience way. I think the pandemic definitely put things at a halt, transparently. I'm sure, as you know, with events, even obviously we did virtual events like everyone else, and we really tried our best to stay engaged, with our audiences as much as possible. But I would say my most favorite thing about experiential marketing is that human to human interaction, and the ability to talk to people and have them talk back to you. And during the pandemic, that just was increasingly complicated, as you know, because we have chat boxes and things like we have here today. But I still think it was very hard to replace that in-person connection. So, we did try, and many of us, yourself included, did, do switch to virtual events. But I think there was much relief when we were able to finally get back out there and connect with people in the ways that we feel actually are more impactful. So I would say this, though. I think the digital tools that we had to quickly develop in order to connect with people during the pandemic, we've still kept and implemented, such as, lives such as this. And so it's only really been able to enhance our efforts in experiential marketing and, still having that in-person interaction, but like increasing our digital tools on how we, make those experiences even better and accessible. So there was some good that came from it for sure.
And what are the like objectives of some of these campaigns, right? Like your World
Yeah.
Vision raises money for children in need, right?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry,
So
can you repeat the question?
well, the question is how do you raise money using experiential marketing? That's really
Oh,
the
okay.
question. Yeah, because like I said, in my mind, it's the guy on the corner handing out the samples, the peanuts, right? How do you
Yeah.
flip the script and make it about donation instead of like just
Yeah.
brand awareness? How do you actually
Yeah.
get people to open their wallets and donate like that? And has their has their generosity changed since the
Yeah.
pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely won't make it about World Vision specifically. Just because that's where I work. Because I do think all of our charities have the same struggles and have had the same struggles. So I think across the board, to answer the first part of your question, I think many of the tactics on how we engage and how we market are still the same. The principles are still there. Being able to demonstrate, being innovative, being able to kind of tell the story, of what we're trying to communicate, I think is the same. Principles are in marketing are the same across the board, whether you're for profit or a nonprofit. I think the reason why I love working in the charitable sector so much is because, I love a good challenge. And so I think the challenge, within the charitable sector is to, we're asking for something, we're not giving something. So we've had to get really creative on meeting needs that are not necessarily always wants, but also what need are we fulfilling, and are we able to demonstrate an impact that connects with the customer, that they want to be a part of it, that they want to give and they want to help. And so I think us as marketers within the charitable space, it's more about storytelling and it's more about demonstrating impact, where I do feel like, on the for-profit side, sometimes it's a bit easier to be able to tell people about things that they already want or need. And just, making it all flashy and nice and packaging it up nice. So I do like the fact that I personally like the challenge that when you're working in the charitable sector, it's really about the impact. And that's what, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. Because I'm here. get really passionate and I work as hard as I do when I can see for myself the impact of what I'm doing and being able to tell people about that. So I would say that's the difference. That's my long winded answer to your first question. And then, second to that, has giving changed? Like, absolutely. I think, like everyone else, the value, there's two things that have really changed. One, the value of time. People are really, as you know, more intentional about how they spend their time and where they spend it and who they spend it with. And I think, us being able to get into that space where people want to give us their time, and again, being impact focused. If we have an impelling enough story to tell, that's when people will give us their time. And then not only that, bringing people on a journey where eventually they will be, inclined to open their hearts and open their wallets and giving towards a cause that they now feel passionate about because we've been able to demonstrate impact, because we've told stories that resonate with them. And so, yes, I feel like it's harder, but I feel like it's really just pushed us as professionals to be innovative, number one. And then again, be really, really intentional about demonstrating the impact and the why people should, give or spend time with you or get to know your brand a little bit better.
I'm glad you touched on the storytelling part, because I actually found an example that I want to show you of a activation that is so simple, and probably cost a couple $100, not thousands or tens of thousands or millions of dollars to produce, but a very simple activation, and it really focuses on the storytelling element. So I want to play this for you and get your reaction. So here it comes.
Okay, awesome.
Hi, my name is Marcus. In 2016, my life changed with 3 simple words: you have cancer. At just 20 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia and left wondering if I would survive. While chemotherapy slowed my cancer's progression, I was told that a bone marrow transplant would be the only way I would survive. I'm standing in front of you today because someone like you stopped for a few minutes to learn more about saving a life. Signing up today for more information is your first step to potentially be somebody's lifesaver.
What'd you think about
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've seen similar campaigns or similar activations, and I love it. And again, right, that storytelling piece, that's how you draw people in. And I think doing it, the innovation of the phone booth and just like something that catches people's attention, I think that's where we've had to get super creative. But when you have an existing story to tell, that's the bread and butter of what you do. So yeah, I love that. It's great.
Yeah, it's so simple, and probably most Gen Zers probably don't even know what a phone booth is. So that immediately is going to draw some attention. And it's literally a phone booth, an iPad, and people wearing T-shirts with a sign-up form, right? And it's so impactful. So you have something very simple like this that is a sort of more charitable focused marketing activation, and then you have like insane brand activations, right? Like you think South by Southwest, where you have TikTok and huge brands doing these activations, which I think is also part of what a lot of people think of when they think of experiential marketing. I think that's kind of what I thought of mostly, is just these ginormous brand activations, but not so much like smaller grassroots types of events. But one that I think is like the pièce de la résistance, if you will, in terms of this like massive brand activation is VCon, and I want to play you a clip from VCon as well, and get your impression on this, because this is like an event that I would love to go to. I think a lot of people would really like to go to this. And I guess the other part of the experiential marketing aspect is like the sort of social media side and the FOMO. Like, I got huge FOMO from seeing people going to VCon, and Dreamforce less so much because it's like a little bit more dry. VCon looks like really, really fun, like a crazy party to go to. So let's check out a little bit of VCon here.
Amazing. Oh, I can't hear you.
Oops, I muted myself because I took a sip of water. I was saying there was like nothing they didn't think of.
Yeah,
you had like puppies there. You had like fun activations, games, things people could do that are, totally branded. Yeah. You have amazing speakers and content, like Busta Rhymes is performing. I know they had a whole bunch of other speakers. And then I feel like this kind of stuff trickles down into just the events industry as a whole, where people take these type of activation, Coachella type ideas and bring them into just a corporate event even, or a conference, where it's not necessarily a bunch of brands doing marketing, but it's actually taking these kind of like fun activations and making it engaging and interactive and entertaining, right?
Yeah, I actually love that you showed that, because that is one of the best visual examples of XM in a box, what I would say. So, when I was talking about the umbrella of what experiential marketing is, that's a really great example of, all the elements. So it had like, one-off events, it had concerts, it had the ability to engage with people's senses through the petting the dog. You saw the dog activation. It had, the ability to leverage like celebrities and ambassadors.
Oh, and I would like to point out, there was a guy in a peanut suit there. Did you see the peanut suit? Handing out peanuts? Suit, he was there.
You were spot on with that. But yeah, that is what experiential marketing is. It's the ability to use all of those different tactics and channels to engage people in a way where they feel something in real life, and you're able to, engage with people in a human way. So I think that was a great example of what experiential is.
Get the class.
Should I bow?
So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, now that we've sort of covered what experiential marketing is, how do you ensure that, when you're planning and designing these activations, that they're like fully inclusive and, for all, accessible, inclusive, all these things that are really big. I hate to say buzzwords, but they really are, but they're also really important and really could be the point of failure for an activation if it isn't accessible, if it isn't inclusive, so that you really have to like put a lot of thought into that, don't you? And how important is that for, you know, the events and the sort of activations that you're working on?
Yeah, for me personally, it's actually critical, and I think that, you know, as how you be accommodating, or you know, aspire to be as inclusive as possible through your external activations or your external activities, to me stems from how you operate internally. And so, you know, it can never be an afterthought. So if you, as a, you know, a business owner, as an organization, as a charity, you know, already have that mentality internally, that actually just, you know, kind of spews over into what you know, how you present yourself externally as well. And it's never an afterthought. It's always at the core of everything you do. So for me specifically, it has definitely been the core of everything I know I do, that I push my teams to work towards as well. You know, it's almost like a challenge for us to be able to say, you know, how we've done things in the past just doesn't work anymore. You know, pandemic and all those things, you know, rolled into one. But also just even for myself personally, you know, as obviously a woman of color, and making sure that, you know, I feel that there is a great range of representation across all the work that I have any hand in. And so I think, to answer your question, I think there's absolutely things that you can do to make sure that externally and the experiences themselves are as accessible as possible, or, you know, as meets as much cultural diversity need, whatever the case may be. But I don't think that that can happen if that mindset is not internal to your organization, to you as a leader, to you as an entrepreneur, that sort of thing. So I think if that's already there, then what you do, you know, sort of reflects that.
And how do you feel like we're doing as a whole, as an industry in that department? Like, is there still a long way to go? Have we made strides? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so funny you ask me this, because I was actually just thinking about this morning for some reason. I think, okay, let me say this. I am very encouraged by how far we've come in terms of even just having this discussion right now, or this even being a topic of discussion during this podcast. For me, is leaps and bounds, you know, based on my experience, especially in this industry. So in that sense, I'm definitely encouraged. Where I was feeling that there's much work to do, and trying not to get discouraged about it, because, you know, we can't get tired of the journey that we're on, and to making sure that we're as inclusive as a society as possible. Where I feel there's a lot of work to do is more, like I said, on the internal side of how we operate as organizations, our mentality, the people that we involved in this decision making. I mean, transparently, I've learned, you know, in the last 3 years, like there's still events that I go to, or meetings or conferences, where I'm the only person that looks like me, you know, in the room, like the only woman, much less the only Black woman.
I still see a lot of manels. You know, the manel. It's a panel of just men, white men.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So still some work to be done in that.
Still some work to be done.
Yeah.
But encouraged that we're having the conversations, and, you know, staying focused and doing, you know, whatever I can, even just like I said, representation really does make a difference. So definitely keep the conversations going.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that we can have this conversation here on the pod.
Yeah, me too.
And sort of in closing, you know, what are your thoughts in terms of like the future of XM, and you know, any upcoming trends that you're forecasting, or things that we should be looking out for or trying to implement into our campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as far as the future of XM goes, I mean, I could be biased because, you know, it's where my passion lies, but I think as we evolve, like I talked about earlier, because there's so many various ways that we can connect with people in a human interaction way, there's just a world of opportunities. And again, with the implementation of digital tools and digital, you know, things like the AI that you showed earlier today, I think that there's so much more that we can explore on how we can integrate those two, both in real life experience as well as the digital experience. So that makes me super excited. excited. I also think that we're just living in a time of incredible innovation in, how we engage with people, just coming out with crazy ideas that we just never did, 10 years ago, as you may know in this industry. And so that level of innovation and insight is just super encouraging to me because I feel like there's no box. Like this is just open. This is an open playing field and we can do this for many years to come. So I'm very excited about that. In terms of upcoming campaigns for myself, obviously love my role at World Vision. And again, us too, exploring this world of innovation, of digital, of, what can we do to better tell impactful stories, in really organic ways. I think that's really key right now is like connecting with people in a way that matters to them. And the challenge of that is super exciting for me.
Yeah, my hat goes off to people in experiential marketing who can tell that story and, and make it impactful.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, I don't know, seems to me, of course, I'm not in that world, but it seems like a daunting task with a ton of risk if not done properly.
Yeah, well, keeps us on our toes. And you are actually in the world of experiential marketing. You may just not know it yet, but
true.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've even
for me
noticed that, like I
personally,
told you this in our rehearsal, like,
yeah.
I've noticed, like, I've had clients historically, just even in the, corporate events world who, used to have like event specialists and event departments years ago. And now those roles have kind of shifted over into marketing, and now they're in the marketing department. So we are without even knowing in a little bit in that world.
We're all marketers.
Yeah, well, this is it. We're doing it right now, right? Marketing.
Yeah,
this is a marketing campaign. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing all of this amazing insight and knowledge on the podcast. I'm going to give you more claps. I'm going to give you confetti.
Oh, thank you.
If people want to connect with you and work with you or pick your brain, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. So you can just, search me up. I think that's probably the most convenient way. And then from there, we can connect and, I can share all the details. But that's probably the number one way and easiest way, just to look up my name on LinkedIn and find me. I'm always looking to connect with people, make new friends in the industry like yourself. So yeah,
absolutely.
That's the best way. I encourage it for sure.
Well, thanks so much, Nicole. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I look forward to the next time we get to connect.
Thank you. Thanks. This was so much fun. Thanks, Arthur.
All right. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
All right. So that brings to conclusion my show. I want to, again, thank Nicole for doing such a wonderful job and sharing all her insights and knowledge in experiential marketing. I know that I certainly have learned a thing or two. And of course, if you liked what you saw today and you like the content, please subscribe. You can like the content. You can follow along. You can ding the bell. You can do all those things. And really appreciate you tuning in. My name's Arthur Kay. Until next time, I'm signing out.